was equally an exciting period. Great Ife was fun all through. It was a period for sheer determination for success, and it was a period when students' politics was at its best. Only the highly cerebral with the gift of eloquence threw their ass into the rings of student politics. They were driven solely by their convictions and a passion to better the lots of students. I do not know if the same can be said of this present-day student unionism. Then life was easy. Government's feeding system was fantastic. It was a period where you have academic exchange programs with foreign students, Zimbabweans in particular, and lecturers from all over the world. It was a period of real quality education where certificates were never for sale. Hard work and honesty of purpose was a virtue. Oh, those good old days. It is, however, most disheartening and rather unfortunate that all the dictum about hard work and honesty is lacking among our youths today. It's now a race to get rich quick. It is equally a generation of it is those who know the way that will pass. It is a generation of money answereth all things. Values have been thrown to the dogs, and the upcoming ones no longer have an iota of respect for elders and culture. It is never too late to stop this fast slip to the precipice among our youths. We can have a cultural rebirth and a sound ethical orientation that will give our youths a better vision of a new day and a promising tomorrow that will outshine the good old days. We can make the giant leaps that will make the great differences in the lives of our youths. We can do it. We can change the narrative. When there is a will, there is always a way. I therefore join Sir Shemore Badejo in this determined drive towards a greater and more promising future for our youths. After all, the beautiful ones are not yet born. Thank you.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408 or send an email to marketing@PlusTvAfrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the Babin, I pay my rent. On the Babin, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
Senate passes bill to manage and control sickle cell anemia in Nigeria.
And still talking healthcare, more doctors leave Nigeria. A research by National Daily shows 353 doctors migrated to the United Kingdom in just 100 days.
The papers are here this morning and we'll be taking a look at them. Welcome to the breakfast on Plus TV Africa. It's a very beautiful, beautiful Thursday morning in the city, and we're glad to have you join us. I am Anetta Phillips.
Good morning to you. Welcome to a Thursday morning here on the breakfast. I am Osaugi Obon.
So our first top trending story, Saragi, really takes me back to a statement that Chris Anthony made regarding the number of doctors that are leaving Nigeria, the supposed brain drain. And when he was asked the question about Nigerians living in droves, and he said, oh, we have a lot of doctors, and that if we have enough, then we can definitely export our talent to other countries. And the presenter of that particular program looked in shock, because we know that the brain drain problem has been a lingering one for a long time. And we got a publication yesterday, and that's from the Office of the General Medical Council. Their website put out a publication that showed that 353 Nigerian doctors have actually received licenses and have been registered to work in the United Kingdom for the past 100 days. That means that in 100 days, 353 Nigerian doctors were registered to work in the United Kingdom. If this isn't surprising to you, I don't know what is, because we know really about the brain drain problem. But the fact that we see that in the past 100 days, this is just how much have left Nigeria. And, overall, we see that 8,787 Nigerian doctors who obtained degrees to practice overseas, basically practice in the UK. So most Nigerian doctors who are living in droves, it seems like the United Kingdom is like the destination of choice. And there's this vice president of the National Association of Resident Doctors, Julian Ojebo. She said that the rates at which Nigerian doctors are leaving the country is also expected to double in the coming weeks, because according to her, that in fact, now that it seems that the destination of choice for Nigerian doctors is the UK, in the coming weeks, most doctors will begin to gravitate towards Saudi Arabia. And we know that we know somebody who knows somebody who definitely is a doctor in the UK, in the US, in Canada, in Saudi Arabia, in these countries. And all this really brings us back to the conversation about the welfare of doctors in Nigeria. We've been talking about striking doctors for a long time, NARD going on strike, JHSU going on strike, conversations between the government and medical association unions. These unions accusing the government of reaching an agreement and then breaching that. So it's just a lot. And you really can see reason why these people might want to take their trade somewhere else where they are valued and their welfare is a priority.
Yeah, well, you stated that it was shocking, or it should be shocking, but I think for a lot of people it's really not shocking. 353, 600, whatever the figure is, it's really not shocking. And bear in mind that the conversation we're having now is about the UK, there's Saudi Arabia, there's Canada, there's the US, there's many, many, many destinations that Nigerian doctors are, looking, forward to leaving and heading towards. And a lot of these people don't even bother with practicing in Nigeria. They finish, this schooling, do their is it residency or housemanship?
Housemanship, yes.
And right after that, they on their way. I think they even start processing papers right after they finish the housemanship. So it's not shocking in any way. Saudi Arabia also has very, very mind-blowing figures. With doctors over there, there's thousands of Nigerian doctors that move to Saudi Arabia. The UK really is mostly because of the currency, and of course they would rather be paid in pounds. Getting paid £3,000, £4,000 monthly, it cannot be compared to whatever it is that you receive here in Nigeria. And also looking at what the current exchange rate is. So, and it also, gives you a better, platform to space to practice. Really, you learn more. A lot of Nigerian doctors over there would say that some of the things that they learned while being trained here are only about 20% of what they really needed to learn concerning medical practice. And so when they go over there, you know, it's a much more interesting space. They get paid better, and you know, they basically are able to create a different future for themselves, financially and career-wise, and you know, just with their own goals. So it's not in any way shocking, and more people will continue to leave. Nigeria currently, the way it is, I don't think I have ever lived, you know, through a time when there were more Nigerians eager to leave. I saw someone tweet something yesterday saying, you know, that he is about leaving Nigeria, you know, but he is hurt. And he's not hurt because of the process through which, you know, he has to go to leave, you know, seeking Canadian immigration or whichever country. But, you know, the pain really that this is what we have to deal with, that our country is no longer good enough for us. And so a lot of people are moving to another man's land just so you can have some sense of a better future for yourself.
The airports,
and that's it.
Crowded.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, that's not even the stressful part.
It is just crowded.
It's just the mental, you know, picture of the fact that you have a home, you have parents, you have family, you have a roof over your head here, but you have to find your way to another man's country
just to live better.
Just to live better, just to give yourself some sense of a better future for yourself, whoever it is that you get married to, and for your kids. Many people would sell property, sell their houses, sell their cars, just so they can afford to give birth outside Nigeria today. You know, that's really what, you know, has been going on. No matter how many millions of naira it will cost, now the exchange rate is crazy. They will do whatever they can just so they can give birth in the US or in Canada or in the UK, just, you know, for that little bit of security that it gives them. So there will be more doctors. I'm sure that this morning there's more leaving. Tomorrow morning, throughout this week, there will be more living.
Throughout the year?
Yeah, throughout the year, it will continue. It's simply because there is almost zero faith in the Nigerian dream or the Nigerian goal or Nigerian, or the country itself. That also is reflecting in our currency, and that's why we had this conversation yesterday that there's almost nobody right now that wants to save in naira. As long as you have money, everybody wants to save in foreign currency, in the dollar, you know, simply because there's zero faith. The Minister of Information, whoever it is, Minister of Labor, can paint this thing left and right. He can paint it in as many colors as possible, but it will never, never, never be the true reflection of what the hearts of Nigerians are.
And that reminds me of a recent publication by the World Health Organization. We shared this on the breakfast on Off the Press, talking about the doctor-to-patient ratio in Nigeria. It was far, far lower than the recommendation. And as you find in other countries. So if we have very little amount of doctors that are catering for our own health needs, and these people are going out of the country because they're not getting what they deserve here, why is the government not thinking about how to make these people stay, how to incentivize the health sector such that when you and I fall ill, we don't go to the hospital to meet empty wards without doctors to take care of us?
And that's the reason I took the angle that I took. There's obviously the perspective where patients will suffer, Nigerians themselves will suffer because there's not enough qualified hands in the hospitals to treat them. But, you know, I took that angle because I needed to explain the reason many of these doctors do not care at this point. And, you know, they need to find in the Nigerian goal, whatever that is. There's zero interest in whatever it is that Nigeria is currently doing. And it is mostly, whether we try to, you know, deny it or not, is mostly because of the current administration and how they have handled the country. That's why the Naira doesn't have any faith. That's why our healthcare, our education, everything, you know, there's zero faith in or trust in it, basically. So good luck to Nigerians.
Okay, so our next top trending story is this. The Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, wants to regulate cryptocurrencies. ICPC Chairman Bolaji Owasanoye said this at a retreat in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State yesterday. Now, here's what he said. He said, Nigeria needs regulatory intervention in cryptocurrency trading, and some people trading in cryptocurrencies have used the digital currency and assets to engage in corruption, in money laundering, and terrorism financing. He also went on to say that corruption in digital assets is not easily traceable, and that the government really needs to step up and regulate cryptocurrency so that it will strengthen the economy, lessen the rate of borrowing, and all of that. Now, let's keep that aside and bring this to mind. Are you aware that Nigeria reportedly has the second largest Bitcoin market in the world. And that's, you know, with over $500 million worth of Bitcoin traded in the last 5 years. Now, let's break that down. In the month of May 2021, the volume of Bitcoin trade in Nigeria alone was $38.5 million in the month of May. In the month of August, the volume of Bitcoin traded in Nigeria by Nigerians got to $44.4 million. In January, it was $31 million. You know, April, it was 33. So it just kept increasing. And by August, it was $44.4 million. And you need to understand that the stance that the CBN has taken regarding cryptocurrency has been one of almost opposition. But despite that, Nigerians have always found a way, and they still keep trading in crypto. So now that the ICPC is saying that they want crypto trading regulated, I really, you know, want to see how that's going to happen. Because we know, like even they admitted, it's not easily traceable for you to track, you know, transactions with cryptocurrency, because it uses that blockchain technology. Even though there's some form of transparency, you can hardly track that. So that's going to be a challenge regarding regulation of cryptocurrency. And it's been a subject of debates, you know, globally regarding how can cryptocurrency be regulated to avoid fraud and scams and things like that. But let's see what the federal government is up to. They just might have something up their sleeves.
Personally, I don't know very much about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I've tried to get myself involved with it a few times, but I eventually always just procrastinate. And so, you know, I can't necessarily say, you know, so much with regards to how it works and some of all of that. But, you know, I personally also agree with, you know, some level, you know, with the Nigerian government's and of course with the ICPC now, that there has to be some type of regulation. I think what we'll probably need to do is look deeper at what exactly they mean by regulation, what, you know, they plan to do, in what ways they want to have some level of control over the cryptocurrency space here in Nigeria. They may not necessarily be, you know, invading, you know, into people's cryptocurrency tradings or you know, their privacy or anything like that. But I think it's best that we understand to the, you know, best, you know, that we can what exactly the ICPC means by regulating it, because there is still cryptocurrency theft. Sometime last week I read about huge theft of, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of cryptocurrency that was stolen by some hackers. So there are still those things, you know, and I think that those things are still challenges across the world. And they, you know, should be able to at least put some type of regulation here and there to ensure that it is a safer space for Nigerians to trade. There is already the e-Naira, which the CBN governor has announced, you know, will be launching soon. And so, you know, it's not like they're totally against cryptocurrency or trading in digital currency. Yes. So it's obvious that they are, you know, are interested in it somehow, some way. But I agree that there should be some type of regulation. What I would like that we know best is what they mean by regulation and in what ways they want to, you know, regulate it. But yes, you know, people still, of course, should be free to trade as much Bitcoin as they want to trade, I believe. Okay.
So lastly, on top trending, the permanent orientation camp in Abia State is on the verge of gully erosion. These are the words of the Abia State coordinator of the NYC camp, Mr. Dennis Jingi. He basically came out to appeal to the government to say that this is what's happening. The flood here is just a lot. We're on the verge of an erosion. It's going to affect the hostels. And, you know, I mean, take a look at what you're seeing there on your screen. Such a terrible, terrible situation for an NYC camp that is supposed to be hosting thousands of Nigerians that have traveled from far and wide, different parts of the country to come, you know, to come learn, exchange ideas and all of that. And just imagine the health risk, the life risk in that environment there. And it really makes us wonder the states of the infrastructure, the places, the schools that are used as orientation camps across Nigeria. Are they safe enough for our youth to go and, you know, just go there and do the orientation camp 2 weeks before getting deployed to other places? So I think these are things we need to consider, the state of government infrastructure, because usually these places that are NYC camps are schools. So if that's a school, if what you're seeing there is a school, I think that's a pathetic sight. It looks basically like an uncompleted building to me. And it really makes me ask questions as to why the government felt that that was a safe place for kids or for young adults, actually, you know, to go and convert.
And I agree. Before getting into the gully erosion discussion, you know, I think it's best that we know what exactly this building is. If it is an abandoned war building or it is a picture that was stolen from the internet, because I do not want to accept that this is a place where human beings actually go to school or to, you know, as part of the NYSC process.
Many schools are like that across Nigeria.
Well, you know, it also doesn't make it okay. I know that there's many of them that are like this, but it doesn't make it okay. And this is not even, doesn't even look like a place for humans, or it doesn't even look like a place for animals. So that's, you know, the first point to be made. The Southeast has been recorded or been seen to have the worst gully erosion challenges across Nigeria, mostly the Southeast, and that's why there was something called NewMap. I'm still friends with the head of NewMap in Enugu State, who, you know, has continued to do what they possibly can to ensure that, you know, the whole of the Southeast and its gully erosion challenges are addressed. But this is also a good time to point out Governor Okezie Ikpeazu, and of course the numerous times that he has been called out on social media for his failings in Abia State, mostly with infrastructure. You know, there's a lot of marketplaces in Abia State, and if you look at the pictures of these marketplaces, it is so sickening to believe that there is even governance in Abia State. So he has a lot of work to do. Every now and then you see people come out to defend him when he's being called out, but, you know, you can't, you know, change. You can't, you know, use social media campaigns to take away the pains of the people. People, you know, will actually live through these things. So Governor Abia State in general has had a very, very poor run with regards governance. You know, since 1999, they've had a very, very, very poor run of governors. Their selection process has been very, very unfortunate, sadly. And I hope that in the next elections in Abia State, they will be able to somehow, some way pick somebody who sees these challenges and knows what to do with them. So this is just another example of, you know, the failure of governance, either on the state level, local government level, whichever level it is in Abia State. And these things should be addressed. NewMap itself is still an organization, still a government agency that I believe is doing what it possibly can, but, you know, a whole lot more needs to be done. Most importantly, the very first thing we started with, that school or that place is not a place for humans to teach or to learn or to live.
Not at all. And those are our 3 top trending stories this morning. Let's take a break and we'll be back with Off the Press.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. statutorily mandated to ensure that there is regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
For me, I wanted to change that culture. I didn't believe that until you see a white man or you see a foreigner in the kitchen before you can believe that, you know, good food is going to come out of that kitchen.
You can leverage on each other's spaces and, you know, sell. We believe in Nigeria, right? We believe that Nigeria can get better. We, the youth, are the ones that can make it better.
And my products are proudly made in Nigeria.
Made in Nigeria, showing every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. and repeats on Saturday at 8:30 a.m.
Welcome once again to The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Now let's go to Off the Press and have a quick review of the major stories making headlines across Nigeria today. I'll start with the Punch newspapers, and of course we'll be introducing our guests right after this. The big one on your screen, should be on your screen in a few seconds. Yes, it says Jega Utomi groups, others team up against APC, PDP, and unveil party on October 1st. PRP, ADC, LP to form nucleus of new mega party planned convention. Also, 95 associations seek registration as political parties and more to emerge. Oneza demands Kanu's release. IPOP threatens 30 days shutdown. 2023 Southern Presidency sacrosanct. Afenifere backs governors. Ogun pensioners ground secretariat lockout SSG protesting 68 billion naira gratuity arrears. And also pregnant woman and 2 others kidnapped in Ogun Forest during prayer. Abductors demand 30 million naira. Ooh. Also on the Punch, El-Rufai masquerading as leader, exporting banditry to South, says Akeredolu. And we can also find on the Punch, daily fuel consumption jumps to 72 million liters. Subsidy hits 541.66 billion naira. PDP zones national chairman slot to Southwest. North gets secretary. And also AMCON seizes ex-governor Ahmed's houses, freezes accounts over 5 billion naira debt. Finally, Nigeria and 39 others may not attain pre-COVID-19 GDP levels by 2026. Those are the big stories on the Punch. Oh, also, of course, cooking gas. Marketers lack facilities, say LNNG. And of course, the price hits 7,000 naira.
On the Leadership newspaper, on the sideline of the UN General Assembly, FG pushes for recovery of £2 billion looted funds. Says $700 million recovery made in 4 years and £200 million stuck in the US. You insist on prosecution of surrendered terrorists with 285 case files in court. Ganduje mourns as Gaya Emir dies at 91. APC postpones states congresses. Suspense in PDP as zoning committee sits today. FCDA spends 412 million naira monthly to evacuate waste. Flood ravages Abuja. Senate okay's 13.98 trillion naira 2022 budget projection. Approves $57 per barrel oil benchmark. 410 naira to $1 exchange rate. Passes 2022 to 2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. Anti-open grazing law, your attack on us, divisious, Southern governors tell El-Rufai. I think those are the ones we're taking a look at on the leadership newspaper today.
Daily Independent coming next. It says here, PDP leadership crisis. Secondus vows to fight on, refuses to withdraw court case. Also, Senate okays 13.98 trillion naira for 2022 budget, approves $57 per barrel oil benchmark, and 410 naira to the dollar exchange rate. Senator blames Obasanjo, Yar'Adua, and Jonathan for Nigeria's debt burden. And 10 new national parks to boost biodiversity to commence soon. Also on the Daily Independent, prosecution of Boko Haram sponsors to commence soon, says Malami. And reps decry state of federal roads, say they are death traps. Gunmen attack checkpoints, kill 2 police officers in Enugu. FEC okays a 1.04 billion naira cost of variation for health, water resources ministries. And also, IPOB vows to lock down Southeast for 1 month if Kanu is not arraigned. Finally, on the Daily Independent, AMCON seizes former Kwara governor's mansion over 5 billion naira debt.
Okay, let's take a final look at this newspaper here, The Nation. And it says, zoning, PDP North leaders take formula before panel. Will stick to 2017 distribution of offices. Ogwani panel meets with party chiefs in Enugu. Nigeria pushing to recover £2 billion loot, 285 terror cases ongoing. 2.3 billion naira cocaine seized at airport in Abuja. NDLEA arrests suspect. Makinde nominates 5 as commissioners. 5 billion naira debt. AMCON takes over ex-governor's mansion. APC shifts states congresses. Shegun Oni picks PDP governorship forms. VAT row threatens federal government's 8.36 trillion naira 2022 revenue target. Malami says they will seek Supreme Court decision. Subsidy scam. How firm defrauded government of 1.4 billion naira, Bawa tells court. I think those are the stories we're taking a look at this morning. Good morning to our guest, Public Affairs Analyst, Mr. Ezekiel Nyaitok.
Good morning. Always a pleasure to be on Plus TV Africa.
Fantastic. Lots of stories here on the papers. Where would you like to start?
Whoa. Definitely. It has to do with the mega party arrangement. And we could spend the whole time on it, not just the story, but the motive behind the story. I was listening to your analysis on doctors and, the trending stories and everything and how people are living in this country. And there are many of us that can afford. We really, by the grace of God, can afford to live anywhere in the world. But when you sit back and think of it and know that for people like myself, we're where we are because this country provided a platform when we're younger. Now, when we leave, what we're saying is that the younger ones, you take care of yourself because over 99.9% of Nigerians cannot afford the luxury of traveling out because of our poverty rate and everything. So I think it behoves all women and men of conscience to think again that you can afford does not mean that it's the best thing for you to set out or to jet out. I can understand, I can feel the frustration. I run a company, I've never held any public office. I've been a private sector person all my life. I had to pay my fees in school, and the company I registered in school over about 40 years ago is the company that I'm still working with till today. And I find it really frustrating the way that you cannot get funds to do anything, the way that insecurity has just come, you can't do any analysis that makes sense for you to project your company. And as a result, it seems the shorter route for you to just shut down everything you have, board the next flight. And in my own case, my 3 children are graduated, so it's just my wife and I, so it's so much easier to jet out. But the question is that the most conscientious thing to do at this stage of my life? And the answer says no.
Okay, Mr. Yaitok, I wanted us to now take the stories one after the other. First of all, AMCON has seized the property, the mansion of former Kwara State Governor, over a 5 billion naira debt. And it's on the Daily Independent. The story is also on the Punch newspaper. It says AMCON seizes Governor Ahmed's houses, freezes accounts over 5 billion naira debt. Now, he responded to this, say the seizure of his house is unnecessary. So looking at this and the fact that AMCON has been on a debt recovery drive for a while now, trying to get this, properties and for people who have owed the government. So what do you think? Do you think that, this is a step in the right direction, the seizure of these properties because they have failed to pay their debt? And why exactly these debts in the first place?
You owe, you pay. I mean, there's nothing to analyze in that. When you go to the bank to borrow money, you borrow knowing that there are consequences. The only thing is that if, for instance, you borrowed against a project, maybe government project, like I was discussing with a friend last night, and it so happens that that government is not paying, you've done your part of the bargain, what you do is write that the bank immediately and tell them that on account of this or that, I'm not able to get my payments out, and I would please wish that you stop the interest. This particular guy last night that we're discussing borrowed about 60 million from the bank, and he did a government job he completed, and before he was paid, the money in the bank had gone to over 400 million. And luckily, he got a good advice from a legal practitioner. And somewhere along the line, he had written the bank and showed evidence that he had done the work, but government was owing him. So when they eventually went to court, the court was able to ask that the interest be terminated at the time that he wrote the letter, so long as he had provided the evidence that he was being owed. That when you lend money to a company, it's like a transaction. You make profits and you make losses. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So if the governor, for instance, believes that, number one, that he had that asset legitimately, because that's another story as a governor, how much you have, how come you have such a worth? What were you before you became a governor? And that's another story, probably for ICPC and maybe not EFCC, I don't know. And then if that be the case, then what he has to do is to know that banks lend from public funds, from people's deposits, and as a result, he owes them that duty of care. I've gotten into that problem once or twice, so you need to know you've got to pay, but you need to be able to bargain your case. So you can't tell AMCON they can't come. Rather, you can show them cause that either you are making efforts to repay or your sources of revenue on account of which the money was, advanced in the first place is not from your side. Right. So whichever way you borrow, you pay. That's the way.
Sorry, I talk. Good thing, we're going to move from this story to the next one. And one of the links between these two stories that the person we're speaking about whose property is being seized is one of those who has started this new political movement with Professor Patu Tomi and a few Atahiru Jega, former INEC chairman, and a few others. So let's now talk about the idea of a third force, and this new party that has been, birthed here. It seems to happen every 4 years. Where do you see this going?
Well, the first thing is that I want to tell Nigerians that it started over 2 years ago. I say that because I can say authoritatively. I'm the head of organization in the National Consultative Front. I'm also in the merger committee and also in the steering committee. For the past 2 years, we've traversed the nooks and crannies of this country because we say we can no longer just wait and be taken by surprise. So what is coming up now is not an ad hoc stuff. And what happened 2 days back, which is in the news all over, is not exactly rightly reported, but let me not dispel that. Yes, there is a coalition of different interests, different levels. I belong to probably about 2 or 3 different people doing things, and eventually we're going to come together, dovetail into a vehicle of women and men of conscience, where we're going to say, look, let's form a national emergency rescue team. There are a lot of good people in APC, there are a lot of good people in PDP, so painting everybody with the same brush is not okay. But the principles, the operational dynamics and principles of APC and PDP is strictly entrepreneurial. It's an enterprise. It's not about governance. And we cannot continue. That's why we've become the poverty capital of the world. To them, politics is about means to, it's an investment of sort. And they look at it from that perspective and not about providing service. If you look at the Chapter 2, Section 14, subsection 2B of the National Constitution, Nigerian Constitution, it says that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. That's not their guiding principles. It's about your loyalty and retaining your position, and milking the system is your primary purpose for getting into government. And you can blame them. That's why they sell their house, they sell their conscience to buy us out. And we are waking up to tell Nigerians you can have an alternative. Even on the 1st of October that they are talking about announcing a mega party, it's not going to be announcing a mega party. I can say that authoritatively. On the 1st of October, there's going to be the second National Rescue Summit. That means we've had one before. This is going to be the second National Rescue Summit. And in that summit, across board, across Nigeria, leaders of conscience, men and women, the youths, everybody is going to come out and give their expression of the next, steps. And I think that is something that Nigerians should look out for. A lot is going on. It could seem like 2 years is a short time in politics, but I can tell you that in politics, when the foundations have been right, a month can make the strategic difference.
All right, Mr.
And I'm telling you authoritatively that Nigerians are already positioned to make that change. We can't run away.
Okay, so still on that political conversation, when we take a look at the Nation newspaper, the headline there on that Nation says, zoning, PDP North leaders take formula before panel. Now, they had an agreement on Tuesday night, and what they've come up with is to agree that they're going to zone, this political arrangement to the South. And also, when we take a look at this next paper, it's The Punch. It also says that 2023 Southern presidency sacrosanct, Afenifere backs governors. So the PDP leadership seems to want to take the side and lean towards the South. Afenifere is also backing the presidency for the South. But there's also that Northern coalition, the opposition, that says that, the next president of Nigeria should also come from the northern part of the country. So where do you weigh in regarding this zoning conflict?
My position is relatively, and I talk as an individual, not as representing an institution. I've come to realize that the leadership recruitment process should go beyond North and South. If you carry an incompetent pilot and put in the cockpit, that aircraft is guaranteed to crash. I know that there are competent people in every state of the federation, not just geopolitical zone, not just North-South. There are competent people. But our leadership recruitment process has not been able to throw up the best. And I want to tell you as an individual that PDP, APC, any of these people, if they give me half current from the South, and then one small party or a third force gives me an extremely competent person from the North, I want this country to be properly driven or to be properly piloted or governed. To that extent, I think we should pay more emphasis on the quality of person and not from where the person comes from. Because at the end of the day, Nigeria is run by the person called Mr. Buhari. whether it's from the north or from the south. Those are not the idiosyncrasies. It's about who he is as a person. And then the conversation should start to, center around the qualities, the 3 C's: character, competence, capability. Those are the things we should start driving, and tell my Igbo Oriental brethren, you have these stars, parade them, bring them out. As you are pleading for people to, I don't want to use the word pleading, as you are making a case for your section of the country, make that case based on the fact that you can profile 1, 2, 3 people. Let it be what works pari passu, and not just the sentiment of my people, my people, my people. Even from my state, people are starting to say, please, 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 we want to know who is the best person. Right now, whether you come from the south, you come from the north, is inconsequential. And I think that the north has competent people, the south has competent people. Let these people start to parade their stars so that Nigerians, at the end of the day, it's not PDP that is going to vote. They can do their zoning and zone to wherever they want. If another party brings up an extremely competent person, which is what we are doing right now, in what you may call the third force, we are zoning it to competence. We are zoning it to capacity. We are zoning it to capability. And above all, we are bringing Nigerians. There's this, presidential, what they call the Nigeria CEO project. That's what we want to do. And we are opening up the space for Nigerians all across board to give us nominations on who they think will be the most suitable person. And after that, we are going to go into a voting process, extremely transparent, so that there's going to be a conversation shifting from APC, PDP, to competence, to character, to capacity, to capability. And then when we continue to do those votings and eliminating, conversations will start to zero in on the qualities of the persons, their characters, their, what they've been able to achieve in the past. And when we come down to about 18 and move them into what we call the Nigeria Project House, we're going to have a leadership recruitment process that the whole world is going to say, go and look at what is going in Nigeria. And the conversation will shift from PDP, APC to who is the most competent. And by the time that we're able to bring up that person, let PDP bring up any person, let APC bring up any person. They are going to propose them before Nigerians. Nigerians will take the decision. And I can tell you this for free, that the decision is going to go by way of who is going to be the best person to take us out of this very infamous tag of being the poverty capital of the world.
Well,
and I'm happy that PlusTvAfrica is one of our great major partners in this drive, and I want to thank you people for it.
All right, Mr. Ayatok, still on this, conversation. Yes, it might sound really, really interesting and, like the right way to go. Competence instead of tribe or religion or region. But, I think it's also important, that we, look at the facts that, the timing might be a little short. I know you've already mentioned that, 2 years, or 1 month, as long as you get it right, people would always move in that direction, which is, from your perspective. But the political structures that these other 2 major political parties have run for, more than 20 years now. How do you think that Nigerians, aside those who you can reach out to online, and the ones who you can ask these questions and streamline, the candidates, until you get to that one person, how do you think that, this can be sold to 200 million people in the time that we have? I'm sure you are also aware that there's still a challenge with getting as many people registered or even interested in the voting process. There's many of these concerns. How do you think all of this can work? If INEC is not able to register that many people, if we're not able to, or if Nigeria is not able to get many, many, many more young people registered to vote between now and 2023, how do you think that it's possible that whoever it is that your candidate is will, become relevant in enough time before 2023?
Absolutely valid question. Absolutely so. Like I said, for the past, in the immediate past 6 months, we've had all manner of think tanks. Right now, I'm in Abuja, I came in yesterday strictly for one meeting, and as soon as I finish with you, I'm on my way back to the airport. I'll go back to base in Uyo. Why am I saying that? Look at present realities. Look at Big Brother. What structures does it have? It gets 60 million, 20 million votes, people to vote. What you need to do is drive a process that appeals to the young people. We've sat down and we thought about it. And that process commences October 1. That's what I'm saying, that what you've been hearing like mega party put forward is really not going to be a mega party stuff. It's a process that's going to start, that we've been working, all the 18 parties minus 2, we've talked to all of them. I'm a member of that committee. So that party formation is there. There's already that coalition. There's already that understanding. We're just crossing the T's and dotting the I's. So we're not in a hurry to shout out. So that is already there. Then secondly, you will be the major driver of what we are doing. The reason is that when you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, all the media houses within 1 month can cause a level of awareness and enlightenment that is unprecedented in this country. When the man in the village gets to see that, for once, we're having, let me even just make it a little shorter. Are you aware that we had less than 35% of registered voters voting? The reason is usually two. One is that they are choosing between the rock and the hard place. Second is that they are not even sure that their votes will count. So how do we address these two? Number one, in terms of vote, we are having this second national summit is a consensus building around one topic: electronic transmission of results. We want INEC to know that Nigeria is completely behind them. And the quality of people that are going to be speaking, you will be impressed yourself. So we are going to have quality electoral process. And the chairman of INEC has already said, before he made such a statement openly, he's thought through it. He said, without biometric identification, there will be no voting. It's such a powerful statement that he made. And before he made that statement, there's a reason why the Senate refused to call him to come and testify on the floor, because he's made up his mind. And I want to show that he's not alone. Nigerians are behind him. So number one, there's going to be proper voting where your vote will count. And secondly, we're going to bring, through the people, bring out quality candidates that Nigeria will be excited about. So within these two parameters, above all things, and within the voting process, we are raising the money. It's going to be warehoused by one of the biggest audit firms in this country because of integrity. It's going to use blockchain technology. We've been on it to build confidence in Nigerians. You can't give what you don't have. All those kalo things, people are appearing overnight. No, Nigerians will see the processes evolving, and with each step, there will be confidence building. At the end of the day, we would have started a process of really rescuing Nigeria, and I'm very excited to be part of this.
Okay, so I want us to now begin to talk money. There are lots of money topics in the papers this morning. One of them that we've seen, I think this is even a headline on one of the papers, and it's on the Leadership newspaper. The Leadership says, FG pushes for recovery of £2 billion looted funds. And it says that this is a statement by Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami. He says that in 4 years, the federal government has recovered $700 million. And he says 200 million pounds is stuck in the US. And taking a closer look at this story, Malami is basically saying that there's like lots of looted funds, Nigerian politicians, Nigerian businessmen who have siphoned money meant for the general public and, you know, taking that, stashing it in so many other countries. And they're in talks with countries like the UK to make sure that these stolen funds are repatriated to the tune of $2 billion. And when we convert that to Naira, it's about 1.12 trillion Naira that has been taken out of the country. Mr. Nyetok, we keep talking about blocking leakages, and that even when we're able to block these leakages, the funds have been stolen out of the country and are repatriated. What exactly are we using them for? This continues to be a subject of debate, Mr. Nyetok. So can we go back to the first conversation about how to prevent politicians and businessmen from taking money meant for Nigerians out of the country for their own personal benefit?
You know, it's like we carry a lovely piece of yarn and we leave it with the goats to take care of it. And then we come back and we are so shocked that the goat has eaten the yam. I ask, where is the problem? With the goat or with the person who gave goat yam to keep? You and I know how these people sell their soul to get into office. Why do they get into office? It's a very simple, straightforward question. They get into office to milk the system. Let me just put it raw. Almost everybody, 99, 98, 95% of the people, service has absolutely nothing to do. That's why they say politics is a do or die. When last did you find people fighting on the street to wash your clothes for you, to work for you, to serve you? No, they don't. So when you see somebody fighting on the street to serve you, it's just commonsensical. They're now doing that. So it's to that extent that we keep hearing, we hear of looted funds repatriated. We hear of borrowing. And then what do we not see? What these funds, where they are applied. We do not see them in the infrastructure at the level, at a commensurate level. We do not see it on our human capital development to a commensurate level. Let me tell you very easily. Any person that's a leader that thinks should know that IT is the way of the future. Talking about the fourth revolution. Our children are so gifted that in the cryptocurrency that you said, we are like the second highest in the world. Our children are so gifted that in 419 and advanced fee fraud, we have a way. Now, can a leader not realize that this is a gift that is misplaced? And on account of that, instead of setting up a system to catch the thief, you set up a robust system to tweak this thing, to use it properly, tweak this skill that we have. Make sure that every young person has a laptop. Every tertiary institution student has a laptop. Programming is put in the laptop. Then you build an ecosystem that can isolate the scammers. These people, as much as I do not want to justify what they are doing, you must agree with me that our young people must survive. So let's have a governance system that thinks of them, that harvest their potentials in the right direction, instead of calling them lazy youth and tagging them with all sorts of things. And now they become rebellious. It's like, you go to hell. And it's not good enough for us because the leaders are stealing the money. The youth, you tell them to behave, and how are they going to become something when there is nothing that leads them, that guides them, that directs them in the right direction? How many role models do we have? How many of the people, I tell my governor, when you go for a meeting, the people that sit at the high table are the commissioners, the chairman, the this, the that. I don't see the best graduating students sitting on the high table. I don't see the entrepreneur that is doing very well sitting on the high table. I don't see that teacher that is the best teacher sitting on the high table to form an inspiration to the younger ones to know that excellence pays. What they see is that politics pays. And politics within this context is not that of service, but that of a young person who was a street tout and now he's an SA, a PA, and you go look at the house he's living. We're just confusing our young people, and we can't continue this way. We can't.
Talking money now, theft, and let's move to the southeast, where another crisis is very likely brewing. It says on the Punch this morning, Ohaneze demands Kanu's release, and also IPOB threatens 30-day shutdown if he is not, of course, arraigned. So let's quickly get your thoughts on all of this.
I want to play the devil's advocate.
Go ahead, please.
I'm a Northerner, I'm in power. Southerners threatening to shut down their section of the country for 30 days. And I'm like, go ahead, boy. Our schools are shut in the north, man. Our factories are shut in the north. You guys are making money. You guys are making business. So please, Guys, make sure that Kanu does not come out. Make sure that they shut down so that the students will not be able to go and write their WAEC, so that the companies will not be able to operate, so that the economy of the Southeast will start to suffer what we are suffering in the North. That's playing the devil's advocate of a terrible Nigerian, and it's a case of smiting your nose to spite your face. Please, come on. These guys should be a little more strategic than that. Unless, of course, they are playing the fifth columnist to make sure that Kanu is never released. Are they expecting that the federal government is going to be so worried, so scared, they're going to be so bothered? We're not talking of shutting down Abuja that will affect them. You're talking of shutting down Southeast. How does that affect the price of Gari in their own side of the divide? I think we need to be a little more strategic in the things that we do. We need to, and the one problem I have with Kanu is that he just does not have strategic thinkers with him. And the next thing is that once they do that, the average Igbo man who lives on trade on a daily basis is going to say, to hell with this Kanu, what is it? What does he want with Nigeria? Who says I want to leave Nigeria? He's going to have a subtle revolt because people are starting to say, and he does not have an alternative to feed the people. You see, the Boko Haram people are a little smarter, unfortunately, because they play, the big brother role. They play, what's this guy, his name, I can't remember again, that takes the money and distributes to the people. They try to see, oh, this will give us protection. Oh, this will do this to that. So they are able to buy the sentiment of the people. But in the Southeast, IPOP is not providing any of those things that shows the people, we are for you, we are behind you, we are with you. They sold hope that if Biafra is given as a country, we will be the better for it. That was the hope they sold. And the currency of that hope is depreciating on a daily basis. And to another extent, I want the Eastern leaders, my Oriental brethren, to start to drive that reverse psychology, to drive that reverse mindset. And I want to appeal to the federal government, please, whatever it takes, know that justice runs a system. You may be winning for today. The Southeast, they have a case, they have a point. It's not okay that, number one, they have the least, one or two states in the North have more local government than the whole of Southeast put together. And our revenue sharing goes into local government, they go into local government, they go into numbers. So I think that the Southeast has been marginalized in many ways. In the Security Council, how can a whole region not be, accommodated at the highest level? When they are discussing the issues of the Southeast in the region, who speaks for them? Who speaks for them? What's fair is fair. Mr. President can afford to get a service chief or one of the service chiefs or top people from the Southeast. He can, but each time such opportunity comes, there's a strategic realignment and they lose out. I think what's fair is fair. As much as I think that what Kanu is doing is absolutely, in my opinion, tactless, I think that the Igbos have a cause to say it's not okay.
Okay, I think I want us to finally take a look at this story. It's on the Punch newspaper on the top right corner, on the bottom right corner. And it says, Ogun Pensioners Ground Secretariat lock out SSG protesting 68 billion naira gratuity arrears. So this story really, when I saw it, really struck me because these are old people who carried placards saying pay pensions to all pensioners. They basically grounded, the Secretariat house in the governor's office. They blocked the two entrances, to that Secretariat for about 4 hours, carrying placards and asking Governor Abiodun to honor his fathers and, pay their pensions and gratuities. They say they've been owed jointly about 68 billion naira. I mean, do we have to get to this point? Protest, especially by the aged in Nigeria who should be receiving their gratuities and enjoying their retirement. Should we have to get to this level before the government does something about it?
What makes it really, really disheartening is that a lot of these people were people who were in the civil service when the civil service was more sane. These are people who worked and retired with nothing because they were civil servants. These are people who served the country with their whole heart. A very good example is right inside my house. My mother-in-law, next year she'll be 90. She's extremely, if she didn't have people like us I see her contemporaries when they come to the house, and I weep. And she will tell you, oh, this was when I was principal, this was my vice principal. And you look at that person, and there could be no better definition of being wretched. Mm. And meanwhile, you go to government house every night. The level of buffet, the drinks every night. And these people cannot afford 1 square meal. The pensioners should be first-line charge, if nothing else. Even, I dare say this, before those still in service. And those still in service should be the ones advocating for it. There's a story that was showed on one of the news TV stations when a retiree was making noise. One of them called in and said, please, I'm a retiree like you, please shut up and leave the station. How many times did I come to your office when you were there and I talked to you and I said, one day you come out and meet it. And then you are going back because you've now retired. If you had done what I told you to do, will we be where we are today? I want to appeal to civil servants that are still in service to know that the bed they're making now is what they're going to lie on sooner than later. So while governors are running riots and doing as they wish, the civil servants themselves should know that that is an inevitable concomitant. They are going to get there. So they should be the ones championing the good of the retirees. That's my take on it. Okay. But for government, you're not thinking.
All right. Ms. Ezekiel Nyayatok, thank you very much, as always, for your analysis and for sharing your time with us on this Thursday morning.
Thank you.
Wish you a good,
Thank you.
great
God
day
bless
ahead.
you all. Thank you.
All right. Stay with us when we come back. A little bit of history. What happened on this day, September 23rd, many, many years ago. We'll be sharing with you here on The Breakfast.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them. If you no talk, then go beat you. Now 2,500 and they pay.
Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Welcome to your favorite program, The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church. Our God is a God of salvation, far above all principality and power, and might and dominion, that regardless of what happens in this season, you will escape. Say to your neighbor, there is no peace for the wicked. The lazy man does not roast what he took in hunting, but diligence is a man's precious possession. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might.
Moment of Truth with Pastor Tunde Bakare, Sundays, 7 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Politics has helped shape the decision of the polity, from conspiracy theories to good old-fashioned comic politics.
These are the results of tomorrow's election. Okay, you have it already, Abi.
I am not hungry. If I need appointment, all I need to do is to start praising government.
Plus, politics will fill the polls of the country, from friends to frenemies, even strange bedfellows, to clones and stooges. We go beyond the rhetorics and the drama to analyze the story behind the story.
Let anybody
Somebody come and say. The moment we stop having charlatans occupy political offices, we will curtail hate speech.
Plus Politics, not just another political show. It's about putting you, the citizens, in the know. Welcome back to the Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. On the 23rd of September 2019, here's what happened in history. British travel company Thomas Cook Group declared bankruptcy. This particular event left employees stranded and jobless in their numbers. I mean, as much as 600,000 customers were stranded abroad. Hotels throughout the world were struck with a £338 million or 415 million euros dollars in unpaid bills. Thomas Cook is a 178-year-old British travel company and airline, and this particular situation cost, this stranded and unemployedness for about 150 British people. And the British Department for Transport and Civil Aviation Authority had prepared plans, codenamed Operation Matterhorn, and that's to repatriate passengers who were British and were stranded. It was the largest ever peacetime repatriation in the history of the United Kingdom, and it topped the operation of the government that was carried out some years back in 2017 after the collapse of Monarch Airlines.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. And of course, points to take out there is, how you know, sometimes, you know, failure of, you know, just a slight failure in an organization can affect hundreds of people, maybe even thousands of people, you know, and what the immediate response should be at a time like that. I've always known Thomas, I really always felt Thomas Cook was a cookware maker. I really always felt that
we understand.
They were into making kitchenware. And
we understand. But you know how names can be over there. You can have a Jesus Stone, you know. It's
and
cool.
I think it's maybe because I've seen. Maybe I'm just, you know, daydreaming, but I think I've seen, you know, some kitchenware that is, you know, named Thomas Cook, some pens and things like that. But that's what I thought.
The name of the travel company was initially known as JMC, but in 2003 they rebranded and became known as Thomas Cook. You know, obviously they ceased operations in the past few years because of, you know, that bankruptcy that they declared, you know. So yeah, that's what happened today in history. And we'll take a break here. And when we come back, we'll be taking a look at sex education in Nigeria. Are we doing it right?
This medal has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
When I start hearing the shoot of gun,
whatever I have done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people with diverse culture and highly cerebral minds who have a lot to say. And yes, we are talking. It is important we drive the right conversation that informs, inspires, influences thoughts and action. If we say there's beauty in our diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture. We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation, as we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversations shape today. What are you saying to shape your tomorrow? We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
Are you ready to party right from the comfort of your TV screen? The Rundown's here to save the day. From freshly baked videos to the classics to the youngins and dope conversations, all in one chart. We got you covered. Just tune in to The Rundown every Friday, 10:30 p.m. West African time. The Rundown. Let's turn it up.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@PlusTvAfrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on Plus TV Africa.
You're welcome back to The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Let's talk sex education for kids in Nigeria. It's a conversation that's been regarded mostly as a taboo in this part of the world, but today we'll be breaking down those barriers and having an open conversation about sex and education. Let's say good morning to our guest, the founder of Brave Heart Initiative for Youth and Women, Ms. Priscilla Usiobaifo. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here with you today.
Now, when we talk about sex education and children, I want you to give us, what exactly comes to mind, especially for parents, and why it's regarded as a taboo topic in this part of the world.
Depending on the parents, I know for those at the rural communities, they have more reservation. But with better education, we see a lot of parents. For majority of the parents we interact with, the first trigger now is abuse. The first thoughts that now come to their mind. Previously, it used to be promiscuity. But now we are beginning to see a shift from, if you deal with about sex, then my child is going to be promiscuous, to, is there a possibility of an abuse? So these discussions vary depending on the variety of homes and different backgrounds.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit more about, we were talking about sex education for kids. What age are we referring to here? And at what age would you advise that it's important that parents should start to have that conversation with their kids?
Our discussion today is focused on children. So I'm using a description or the Nigerian's definition of a child as 17 and below. So I assume that every child is 17 and below, but we also know that even among this category, you have those that are 10, let me say 1 year to 10 years, then 11 to 14. Most time the resistance is always at the younger children. That's when you see the resistance that come in. But it's also because of misinformation. And why do I call it as I don't want to use the word ignorance. I'm very careful. Ignorance means you do not know. But misinformation means that you know, but the knowledge that you have is not accurate. So it's incorrect. And that is what is happening with sex education. Even the woman in the rural community that hears about sex education, it doesn't mean that she does not have an idea about what sex education is. But the point is that the idea she has about sex education is misinformed. And it is the misinformation that have driven the myth and misconception around this subject that have led to some of the challenges that people have today. When people have a better understanding of what it is about, then they'll be able to know whether to make the choice of embracing it or accepting it. Going back to your question about what age that I also think about what I would call age appropriateness of education. And this is not just about sex education, it's education generally. We know clearly that if you have a son in primary 2, and I have, let's assume he's 5 years old, and I have a son who is 12 years old, and he's 12. So your son is 6 years old, and my son is 12 years old, which means my son is double of the age of young son, even in their basic numeracy and the literacy, let's use the two popular subjects of maths and English, they are not going to be at the same level of teaching, the same level of understanding. And this is what we need to also bring into sex education, because sex education is just a form of other kind of education that we do. And for me, I tell people that the best approach is sexuality education. So you may ask, so what's the difference between sex and sexuality? Sex education is just a component of sexuality education. Sexuality education is broader. You are not just dealing with the biological issues, you are also dealing with life skills, which are very important for children as they grow up, because the child, as soon as you give birth to that child is alive, is a living human being, and definitely needs the skills and knowledge to be able to survive as we live.
Okay, I have lots of questions from what you've said, but I want us to go further down your answer. You earlier talked about the fact that it's not ignorance but misinformation, especially in the rural areas. Could you shed more light on the misinformation that lots of Nigerians have regarding sex education and what the accurate information is and should be?
I'll give you a classical example. In 2012, we approached a secondary school, a private secondary school in Igara. Igara is the local government headquarters of Akoko Edo local government area in Edo State. We had a grant from the International Women's Health Coalition, they are popularly known as IWSC in the US, to conduct comprehensive sexuality education for rural schools, young people in rural schools. And this school was one of the schools we had approached. We wanted secondary school, not even primary, as at then, 2012. And her response was, oh, I understand that some of my students are sexually active, which I do not support. But with you coming to talk about sex education, I'm going to be dealing with a whole lot more. Because if more people know about sex, then there are chances that a lot more are going to try their hands on it. I'm trying to paraphrase her. So indirectly, she stated that if we come to educate them about sex, then they may want to initiate sex. I took time to explain to her that from evidence, because I needed to show them with data and every other thing, and I used myself as a young woman who grew up in a rural community in Edo State. I had information on sex. I knew about condoms as a younger girl. I knew that condom could prevent sex. I knew about negotiation skills. So if I wanted to abstain, for instance, because all we keep hearing is telling your girls or your boys to abstain from sex without teaching them how to abstain. So it's different with what. The how is the methodology. What approaches are you going to put in place? Which means first you need to say what, no. And that is what we refer to as refusal skill. You also need to negotiate, because there are situations where you are going to tell the person no, and the person refuses to accept your no. They feel, oh, with a little more maybe peer pressure, a little more incentive or inducement,
okay, Priscilla,
as the case may be,
just hold on for a minute.
This person
Priscilla,
going to fall. I did all this.
Priscilla, can you hear me?
This woman. Yes, clearly.
Yes, we'll talk more in detail about these tactics, these skills you're talking about regarding sex education. But can we stay on course regarding this misconception, the myths that are...
Information. Yes. So she held on with her beliefs. She had religious beliefs about it. So despite my education, as the case may be, or information, it didn't work. So I'm not going to say that it was instantaneous. So I left and I approached other schools. Then something happened in her school. A young girl who had a core member who was posted to her school had asked an SS3 student in that same school to come to the house, to assist with some domestic work, and led to attempted exploitation. I'm going to use the word sexual exploitation, tried to touch her without her consent, and she had to report to a teacher in the school, and it got back to the proprietress of the school. At the end of the day, I was invited back to the school 2 years later, because they had other incidents that happened that's like, oh, if we had told this person on this thing and these other approaches. And by the time I was invited back, not only was I given opportunity to educate the secondary school, they asked that I please integrate primary 4, primary 5, and primary 6. It was us that were now saying, okay, because of the way our modules were structured, we were working with age. So even if you wanted primary 5, they needed to reach age 10, because we structured our modules in such a way that you had 10 to 14, and you now had 15 to 18. So at every point in time, age appropriateness is key. Sometimes you also don't blame people for misinformation, because we do what they call information overload. So if you get a 2-year-old and say condom, for instance, a 2-year-old may not understand what condom is. So it's not appropriate to discuss condom at that point. So what you do is to start with building of what I call the interpersonal skill with your child. The same way you tell a child, say thank you. The same child, the way you tell a child, say I am sorry. You know, the same way you tell a child, drop it. You know, your child is trying to pick something that belongs to another person, you are saying drop it. So that's how you start this communication about bodily autonomy. And that is one of the main benefits that we have, because with bodily autonomy comes with identity, comes with self-esteem. So this is why it is very important that the mindset that people have, we engage them in such a way that we can change their mindset positively.
Okay. Now, I want us to now talk about the male-female perspectives. Do you think that the conversation should be different, you know, to a female kid, you know, and of course compared to a male? Or should, you know, the conversation on sex education be the same across board?
I didn't see.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I wasn't hearing you.
Okay, so I'm asking if you think the conversation should be different, the sex education conversation should be different to a male child, and of course compared to a female child. Or should they have, you know, the same bits of information and education concerning sex?
It's basically the same. It's just in context. Looking at their identity, sexual identity, to know what and what to discuss. For instance, when we look at the anatomy of a female and the anatomy of a male, they are the same. They are different. So we are not going to use the same terminologies, for instance, to describe their body parts and all that. So that's just the difference. But when you look at the principles of life skills, it's going to be the same. If you need a young girl to be assertive, you also need your boys to be assertive. And I believe you people are also having statistics of boys that are also with low self-esteem, and boys that are having poor self-identity, boys that are having difficulty with communication, boys that are having difficulty with bonding with their family, either with their parents or with their guardian. So these are conversations that has to happen across the sexes.
Okay, so when it comes to the homes, for parents that are watching this program right now, how would you advise mothers and fathers to begin to learn, first of all, because you can't give what you don't have, to begin to learn about sex education and how they should communicate that to their children such that they have that body autonomy that you talked about?
So I normally use what I call teachable moments. You know, when a guest comes into your house and then you see your child staring at your guest drink, maybe you offered the guest a drink, and then you saw the reaction. You try to do what we call non-verbal communication with your child, and your child don't seem to get it, and then you move into verbal communication because you were seeing that moment as a teachable moment. So as parents, we also need to look for a teachable moment to pass this information. They are not your regular homework that the child comes from school and then you say, sit down, I'm going to take you through your homework. So it's first for us to identify what teachable moments are for our children and take advantage of those opportunities. But first, if we have to pass the knowledge based on what we said, it's for us to also look for opportunities. What PlusTV is doing this morning is creating an environment, a very conducive environment for people to learn. So that is what you are doing as a media person. So there should be other opportunities, either in their churches, in their community meetings, in the local group meetings, as many opportunities. First, you need to open your mind. So many parents in Nigeria, they need to be open. And what do I mean by being open? To unlearn. There are so many things we already have. We need to first agree sex education is needed. Yes, it's going to be age appropriate, but first you have to agree that it's something that is needed. Then with that, you now have openness to knowledge that is going to be coming in. As you assimilate, you also take time. You know you need to process it. Because as a parent, you are coming with different ideology and mindset about these issues. So when you are able to process it, you are able to accept it first as yourself and see how it benefits your child. Then you begin to take it gradually. Also, don't forget that children learn at different speed or what would I call it, pace. So you also need to understand the individuality of your own child and say that, yes, there are children that are naturally smart, that you discuss this thing once you pick it. But there are others that, you know, you need to take it periodically, repeatedly. And I always tell people that repetition is the law of deep and lasting impression. So, you know, you need to repeat it again. You have that conversation again. Take another time to have the conversation. Their auntie is around. You have the conversation. And that is why when we take this holistically, as you as your parent is educating your child at home, the school are also creating opportunities to have conversation around this subject. And then it continues around, and then it becomes a societal educational structure.
Practical tips that parents can actually learn from you right now? Practical tips on sex education.
Maybe because of the field of work that I am, it's sad. I like to use the word. If you check most of the surveys that have come up, or the data and statistics since COVID last year, and for me, I'm worried by this data showing that because the schools were shut down and children were home, we recorded higher incidents of sexual violation of children. Not just sexual, physical, all forms of violation of children. Now it brings to mind, or to you, if the schools were shut down, where were these children? They were supposedly at home. And we keep saying that the family remains, our home become the first unit of what? Of socialization, of education, of bonding, of development. So are we saying that our homes are that unsafe? Because this data, you know, they are staggering, they are outrageous. And that means that we need to do far more work in our homes. So why will a woman who didn't go to work because there is COVID stay at home, and the husband find it as an opportunity to be battering her? Because we also need to understand how domestic violence have a cyclical effect on even our children. And all the sex education we are talking about, when the father at home is raping the wife and the child is at home, watching out, mommy is struggling with daddy when these things are happening. All these cycles of violence that we see happen. So please, as parents, parenting is intentional. I don't have my biological children yet, but I know the kind of, I now watch like a hawk. And for me, it is sad. Because one of the first things that sexual predators have done to our communities is to remove that sanity in our homes. You know, your home is supposed to be a safe environment. When you make your home unsafe, when you make the school unsafe, there are a lot of effects that happens. Even when your child is not yet violated, you become paranoid. You want to put extra measures in place. But like we say, you are better safe than what? Than sorry. But one thing I need to encourage parents and guardians today is to know what the benefits of sex education is. The benefits of educating your children on sexuality, on building their life skills. Because when you do this, when they have positive bodily autonomy, they have good self-esteem, they have good body image, and they are able to accept others. What do I mean by accepting others? It brings us back to the question your colleague asked about male versus female. That if I am a 6-year-old girl who has an 8-year-old brother, I have a vagina, my brother has a penis. Because they have educated about sex, I do not see my brother as being abnormal as a child, because I know I'm female and my brother is what? Is male. Sex education has made me understand that my brother's biological system is different from me. Sex education brings bonding. Yes, bonding is very critical, because when you have a good bonding with your child, it also strengthens communication. And we know that parents who exercise healthy communication with their children and have a better, effective, and efficient communication raise better children. These children are going to transition to young adults.
Okay, it's unfortunate there
lost on it, yeah.
that we seem to have had.
Yeah, I was also going to, you know, hopefully mention with the time that we have, if there were other angles that needed to be added to the conversation, you know, aside sex education, you know, letting them know about their genitals and, you know, body, you know, anatomy and all
very
of that.
Important. Very important.
I think also, there's also things that have to be added to the conversation with regards self-control, with regards respecting, you know, the opposite sex and some of all of that. That I think is also lost completely in conversations concerning sex
And hygiene as well.
Yeah, and hygiene also.
Sexual
you know,
health.
Yeah, you know, but I think, you know, with, you know, as with age, you know, like that's why it was great that she differentiated between the 1 to 10, you know, 10 to 14, 14 to 17. So with age, you know, some of all of that needs to be filtered in here and there. But because, you know, I think that we've also had a very poor conversation to young males across Nigeria with regards respect for females and, you know, and for the opposite sex, for consent, and some of all of that. I think that's one of the things that I feel must be also added to the conversation. Or I think we have her back. Mrs. Usiobaifo, can you hear us clearly?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I was just going to ask, you know, if you thought that it was also important that we also filter in or add some extra, you know, details here and there to the sex education conversation as kids grow up, you know, things about consent, about hygiene and respect for, you know, the opposite sex and some of all of that. You know, is there also the importance that, or is that also an important part that needs to be added to the conversation, you know, with sex education?
If you remember clearly, I started by talking about the need for sexuality education by not limiting it to sex. Because when you deal with sexuality, then you are dealing with life skills. And in life skills, you are going to learn about boundaries. It's very important that everyone, and when you teach your child about boundary, you know, behavioral patterns are not automatic. They are going to learn it what? Over time. A child that knows that, you know, don't cross here will probably grow up like that way. And that's why evidence you see is showing that children who have comprehensive sexuality education delay sexual debut. It's fact. There's evidence, there's proof globally, not just in Nigeria, that if they have proper education, if they have comprehensive sexuality education, there are chances that that child is going to delay sex until adulthood or until other time. And even if they are going to engage in sex as an adult, there are chances that they are going to engage in protective sex. There are chances that they are not going to engage or they are not going to forcefully force others, either a girl forces a boy or a boy forces a girl. And that's where this discussion of consent comes about. And it is very important that our sex education is comprehensive. I beg us, let's have comprehensive sexuality education. Because when it's comprehensive, you deal with all these other issues that are associated. And one way to deal with consent is by looking at patriarchy. Because consent does not just exist on its own. A lot of persons, I like to use young men. Yes, we understand that there are women that also do not obey consent, but most of the time, it is men we see forcing women to have sex against their will or using other means. And although we agree that the discussion should be for everyone, but it is the toxic masculinity in our homes. What do I mean by toxic masculinity? When you have raised your son to always have his way, when you have raised your son to see the girl child, all the girls around him as second-class citizens, when you have raised your son to look down on a female or any other woman around them, so when a woman says no, he is touched. His ego, his male ego is now what? Provoked. And then they tend to take those other steps that are not just wrong, they are also criminal actions. And that is why these conversations need to be sustained. And everyone needs to understand boundaries. Everyone needs to understand consent. It's sad that when you look at statistics from Mirabel Center, you look at reports from Project Alert, you look at reports from Brave Arts Initiative, You look at reports from the SAC centers, the sexual assault response centers and referral centers across the country. Till date, over 70% of the cases in these centers, either sexual violence or physical violence, are children. These are violence perpetrated against our children. And this really is a source of worry to as many of us. The Violence Against Children survey that was conducted in 2014 and disseminated in 2016 showed the kind of situation that Nigeria is. You know, it was an emergency, but we still have not dealt with it. And COVID have come and have showed us that beyond the health crisis, we also have an SGBV crisis, a crisis within a crisis. So it's never too late. Let's start today to begin to have this conversation. Let's start today to begin to take actions, because sometimes we do a lot of talking without necessarily putting the requisite action that is needed in this work.
Really, Priscilla, this is a very broad topic. I want to give you a scenario, something I have seen happen, and I would like your expertise on how this problem should be solved. And it's not just an isolated case, it's something that happens across board. So in a household, right, a father rapes a child, or a son rapes a house help, or a brother rapes a sister. But the point is that the abused and the abuser live in the same house, the same vicinity. What do you advise going forward? Should they be separated? Should the child be taken away from the father, and should it be, housed somewhere else? Should the son be taken away? What should be the process and the procedures to make sure that there's not a reoccurrence, a repeat of that abuse simply because they live under the same roof?
First, I'd like to say that incestuous rape is one of the worst form of assault to ever happen. Beyond the criminality of the offense, we're looking at how our society is structured, from religious fundamentalism to traditional fundamentalism, and all the discussions around incest as what? A taboo, as a sacrilege, as something that is abnormal, and all other antecedents of incest. Regardless of whether it is father to a biological child, because there are children that are in your home that blood may not be related to you. For instance, an underage house help. We should not even have an underage house help in our homes. All house help or nannies or housekeepers, whatever name that we use for them, are supposed to be 18 and what? And above. So it's already an anomaly that there is a help in the house that is a minor. That first is wrong. But to answer your question, this kind of scenarios that happen within a confined space, within the homes, my opinion is first for there to be a separation. If not for any reason, for mental well-being. Separation is very needed, because you just talked about repeated offense. There may not even be a repeated offense. Imagine waking up and seeing that face every day. I might have shrugged off with the first one, but as long as the person is there and I'm seeing the person every day, the person may not be coming back to redo what has happened, but for my own well-being, separation is the best. And that is why you see people like me push for shelter. We need more shelters in this country. Shelters are very critical places. Designated shelters. What we see happen in most of these scenarios is just to pick the child and take the child
to the village.
An orphanage home. Yes. An orphan and vulnerable children home, they serve as a shelter. But we need shelter that are specific for this kind of issues. For instance, when we had the first shelter in this country, the Sophia's Place, the one that is run by Project Alert, it was clear that it's for victims of domestic violence. So the kind of shelter management in that place, they had the kind of knowledge and the requisite skills, professionalism and expertise to deal with those issues. So I really beg for shelters. In the absence of shelters, we can use alternative homes. What I mean by alternative home is there any other relative that can take this child at this particular point in time? The best solution would have been for the abuser to be the one to go. But our own situation. The father who have abused will not go. So most probably it is the child who is the victim or the survivor that we may need to move. But preferably it should be the abuser that should be out of that space But the entire environment definitely needs to be changed. The child or the mother or whoever is the victim can't continue to cohabit with the abuser.
Now let's also talk about the importance of making or having a very, very welcoming relationship with your child, so that they feel free to speak up when they are abused. Because I've also seen that might be one of the challenges in homes where there's an uncle or there's a house help or there's an auntie who is sexually harassing a little child, but the child doesn't feel comfortable enough with their parents or doesn't feel like their parents will believe them if they speak up. So let's also talk about the importance of that, having that type of relationship with your child to protect them from abuse or make them comfortable enough to share with you if they are being abused.
We tell people that communication is not complete except there's a feedback. Unfortunately, in my own situation, I had a mother that encouraged me to speak. But guess what? When I speak, I got reprimanded for speaking. We make the mistake oftentimes to encourage parents to say, give your children room to what? To speak. But we fail to also educate them that when they speak, this is how to what? To respond or to react, which are very critical. So as a teenage girl, I suffered 5 attempted rape. 5. Teenager 13 to 19. And in each of these incidents, I told my mom. Guess what? She didn't take any action. She was happy that I spoke with her, but she blamed me. And I lived with the hurt for many years. But when I eventually gathered the courage to speak with my sister, she stood up and, gave me the kind of response that I anticipated. Because the reason you are running to your mother as a child is because you expected what? To be believed, that's one.
Protected.
Then to be supported. So that support is very critical. Communication must go hand in hand with support. Our environment must be a supportive environment. Yes, your parents do not need to go out to go and fight. Maybe do a physical show of fight. But that this thing, your parents took it serious. Let me tell you something that happened one day. A neighbor attempted, to sexually violate me. I fought him off and, even led to a physical struggle. I even inflicted an injury. And my mother walked with me to the neighbor's house to find out about what happened. We got there, you expect a parent, you tell the other person's parent, and then you expect them to call their son. Let's hear their own version of the story, and then you take the next step. And the mother said, we are so sorry, no vex. And my mother reversed, and that was it. We just got back to our house, and it ended there. I felt, when you meet, disappointed and discouraged. And do you know what happened after then? I didn't tell her any further one, which is very dangerous. Because by the time you have encouraged your child to speak, and the child opened up, and then you react in an inappropriate way, or in a judgmental way, or in a further victimizing way. Yes, there are parents that further victimize their children for speaking up. What were you doing there?
What were you wearing?
So when the teacher asked you to come to the class, why didn't you tell the teacher you were not going? This is a child in a school.
Oh my. We hope we get her back.
You are blaming her when the teacher called. So these are all the various scenarios. And that is why it is important that this communication needs to be effective communication, respectful communication between parents and children, between guardians and what.
All right, Priscilla, also, when parents now learn that they need to create an open environment for their kids to speak, what action should they take? For instance, in that situation where your mom took you to the house of that neighbor, what should they have done? What should be the next steps? Should I have been reporting to the police? What steps should they take next? And even for the police, can we also talk about police training, police funding? Because sometimes you take that to the police and they'll tell you it's a family matter, that they can't get involved. So what really should be the next steps after parents are aware that their kids have been sexually violated or there's been an attempt to do so?
So in my own scenario, using personal cases, I would have expected that my mother at least confronts the young man or that makes the mother brings the young man to at least make a commitment. It can be a verbal commitment to say, first, I'm sorry, apologize for what he does, and then makes a pledge for it never to repeat again. And my mother gives a clear warning, if it ever repeats again, this is what I'm going to do to you. And then we leave. So, but there are parents that get confused when these things happen, so they don't know exactly what step to take. So it depends on the context. So we don't give blanket counsel to this kind of situation, because you have to look at each case, the circumstances or the scenarios that surround it. But I will always encourage parents, you can reach out to NGOs, you can reach out to social welfare officers in ministries that can guide you on the step to take. But we know that physical violence, for instance, if your child is bullied in school, you have to take it up with the management, because there are every chances that your child is not the only victim to that bully.
All right.
So let the management sit up to their responsibilities. Your child went to school to learn, so she can't keep coming back with bruises and, you know, all the other stress of physical assault that is receiving from other students in the school. So there are times that you take it as, you know, family to family discussion. There are times you involve the authorities of the place where the incidents have happened. And there are times that you take legal actions. You go to the police.
All right.
For police, it's sad. I have worked with the police for the past 10 years. A large part of my work and advocacy has been for the Nigerian police. If we do not, I'm saying it clearly today, if Nigerian government do not invest in case investigations, we will continue to be in this cycle that we are. So previously I used to say administrative. No, it's not just admin now. It is case investigation itself. In saner climes, in civilized countries, in more exposed countries, who understand what it is to support the administration of the criminal justice system, they know that it involves fundings and trainings. That you train the person is not just enough. The requisite funding needs to be made available. We do too much talk as a government. They don't put the required money there. Oftentimes we go to the police station and we complain that the investigating police officer is demanding money from us after we have made a complaint. The question is, if an IPO is assigned to a case, if at 37 years old, I have a ward that is sexually violated and I've gone to the police to make arrest, this police officer does not have any means of transportation to make an arrest. This police officer does not have any support in his police division to even visit the crime scene. He does not have any support from his division to take me for the requisite medical screening and all others. Then what happens is either he does nothing, or he mandates me to provide the means. And these are all replicant districts all across the country, even your Lagos State, FCT and everywhere.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. You know, I think it's also important to mention, you know, aside the funding and infrastructure at the security level, there's also those police officers who also victim shame and victim blame instead of, you know, going ahead to investigate. But, you know, that's a whole new conversation that will take hours. But we thank you also for joining us this morning and for the work that you do in Gara and, of course, in, you know, many parts of Nigeria. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us this morning, and we wish you a very interesting day ahead.
Have a great one.
Thank you for having me. I hope our session shed more light to other people, and we'll see a safer world for our children in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
Amen. Thank you.
All right. And that's where we wrap up Thursday morning's edition of The Breakfast here on Plus TV Africa, Sex Education for Kids. We hope, of course, that you've learned something and you will pass that message over to others and also to your kids. If you missed out, catch up on our social media platforms. It's simply at Plus TV Africa on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
I am Anetta Felix saying thank you for joining us today.
And I am Osaogi Ogbon.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
There has to be a decision point. The way your baby's presenting, we have to rush you in. And my partner at the time was like, "You going to cut her? Are you going to cut her? Is it going to leave a scar?" And I said, "Am I a belly dancer? What is the problem here?"
No, I'm vulnerable about the future of the children, the future of mine and the future of the generation of my children.
I want to have nude pictures taken. Of you? Yes,
Yeah,
but
we
without
have
showing my private parts. I want to put it in my front room. And they said, you can't do that. People will be embarrassed when they came into your house. I said, well, it's my body and it's my front room.
All the things that we do, what is the purpose of it?
I just realized that I was more trusting before I was 6.
So many women, they just feel like I have to cook for my husband, I have to breastfeed my children, I have to pick them from school.
Because society expects
then you
them
go
to.
home and you cry and you stop your career, you can't do anything, then you blame everybody. You took that choice.
Thank you for joining us on Plus News Brief. I am Osaogie Ogbonwan. President Muhammadu Buhari has held a bilateral meeting on the margins of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. His meeting was with Her Majesty Maxima Zorigeta, the Queen of the Netherlands. A statement by Femi Adesina, the president's spokesman in Abuja, said, during the closed-door meeting, the president stressed the importance of infrastructural development for the advancement of any nation. He said Nigeria was well aware of her limitations and thus prioritized the provision of infrastructure. He added that the country was hampered by resources despite being oil exporting, and that with more wherewithal, infrastructure works would be sped up. President Buhari assured the Queen, who last visited Nigeria in 2017, that if she came again, she would see a lot of differences. The Queen said agriculture was music to her ears, being the daughter of a former Minister of Agriculture, and her biggest plea would be for Nigeria to make infrastructure available so that investors and aid donors could access areas beyond the major cities. And the Federal Executive Council has approved a total of 1.04 billion naira for contracts variation in ministries of health and water resources. This was announced to State House correspondents after the week's virtual FEC meeting presided over by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, who briefed on memoranda from his ministry, as well as those of health and water resources, said the FEC approved an upward review of the contract for the emergency supply, installation and maintenance of 38 oxygen plants across the country in the sum of 836 million naira. The FEC ratified the United Nations Tourism Organization Framework Convention on Tourism Ethics 2020.
Memo we presented for the provision of furniture and equipment at the Federal Polytechnic in Bauchi and approved same. The idea being to use the opportunity to retool and refurnish some of the dilapidated equipment and furniture at some of the departments at the Federal Polytechnic in Bauchi for this at the sum of 121 million naira, and in favor of Mrs. Turaki Heritage Nigeria Limited at the Federal Polytechnic Bauchi.
I want to report that the Honorable Minister for Water Resources presented a memo to Council today seeking Council's approval for the revised estimate total cost and extension of the contract of the consultants supervising the project from an initial sum of 98 million naira to 203 million naira. I also informed Council today that we succeeded finally in listing the Kwagir theatrical performance on UNESCO's representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity.
And the Senate has passed the 2022-2024 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework (MTEF) and Fiscal Strategy Paper of the federal government. The upper chamber also okayed 13.98 trillion naira as a total aggregate expenditure of the federal government for the 2022 fiscal year. Chairman of the Joint Committee, Senator Solomon Adeola, presented the report. Adeola, in his presentation, said the 13.98 trillion naira federal government's aggregate expenditure for 2022 is made up of total recurrent, which is non-debt, of 6.21 trillion naira, personnel cost, MDAs, of course, of 3.47 trillion naira, capital expenditure, which is exclusive of transfers, of 3.26 trillion naira, special intervention amounting to 350 billion naira, and special intervention capital now of 10 billion naira. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has received the report of its Committee on Finance on the Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy Paper for 2022 to 2024. The MTEF FSP is a template on which the annual budget preparation is based. The document submitted to the National Assembly in July was referred to the House Committee on Finance to interrogate and make recommendation to the House before the 2022 budget is presented by the President. The committee chairman, James Faleke, submitted a report to the House at Wednesday's plenary. And the House of Representatives has called on the Minister of Works, Babatunde Fashola, to rehabilitate all federal roads in the country. This resolution was reached after Southeast lawmakers moved a motion of urgent national public importance on the need to avert humanitarian and security crises due to the poor conditions of federal highways in most parts of the Southeast. The Green Chamber finally agreed that other highways in the country should be included in the rehabilitation exercise. The highways are the Onitsha-Owerri, Enugu-Port Harcourt, and Enugu-Onitsha federal highways. Honorable Toby Okechukwu and 79 other federal lawmakers brought the motion for debate on Wednesday at plenary.
In the past 5 days, at minimum, vehicles going to Lagos that pass through Kaba spend 6-7 hours, some spend 3 days on the road. So, Mr. Speaker, my prayer is that we should include that route rather than having multiple motion on road infrastructure.
The Delta State Direct Labor Agency is doing very minimal palliative measures to ensure people can pass. The road is blocked, and there is no way from Benin to Sapele now. I want to beg that that road be added to it.
The House is worried that the present condition of the road has made the road completely impassable, as same poses great hardship to motorists, other road users, host communities, and constitutes threat to the lives of the people, hence the need for urgent government intervention. The House further notes that several portions of the Enugu-Port Harcourt Expressway are failing, even while the contractors are still on site. The House is worried that the rehabilitation works on the Enugu-Onitsha Expressway has been abandoned, as evident in the immense hardship being experienced by motorists and other road users in the Amasia section of the expressway.
Federal roads that were affected as a result of the rainy season should also be made part and parcel of this motion.
Still in the news, Senator John Akpanudo Edehe is the National Secretary, APC Caretaker and Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee. He has, or rather he said, he hinted on the postponement in a statement on Wednesday of the committee meeting, and said an updated timetable and schedule of activities and guidelines for the conduct of the state congresses would be released to the public in due course. It's about 16 months to the 2023 general elections, and a coalition of youth groups in Bayelsa State have called on the Independent National Electoral Commission to sensitize young people and religious leaders on electoral ethics. They believe this will help the youths to make better choices. Our correspondent, Jesse Esse, reports.
Elections in Nigeria always happen with allegations of irregularities like vote buying, ballot box snatching, thuggery, and other forms of rigging. It's not uncommon for young people to collect money to sell their votes. The bulk of people who are employed as thugs during campaigns and on election day are also young people. These are some of the reasons a coalition of youth groups want Nigerian youths to see the 2023 general election as an avenue to change things.
We don't have anything, and yet the people cannot see that, look, there must be a change. So the best thing to do is to keep educating the people. We must educate the people. We must sensitize them. We must guide them that, look, you must depart from this way. You must follow the right way.
They are willing tools in the hands of politicians. And these politicians, they know. That is why deliberately they have refused to create opportunities for the youths of this country. The security personnel that are supposed to work with INEC to ensure that there is peace and stability for electorates to vote are also part of the crisis that we are facing.
The youth leaders are calling on the Independent National Electoral Commission to be neutral in the conduct of future elections. They also want young people to de-emphasize religion, ethnicity, and tribalism during elections.
Despite the religious background, or your ethnicity background, or your social background, it does not matter where you come from, but all we need is to ensure that we have a better Nigeria, we have a better country, and we have a better leaders that can make the people have that sense of belonging.
We vote on ethno-religious lines. That is how the pattern of the votes go. This man is my brother. even when the man does not have the capacity to govern a state or a country or to even become a good legislator, because he's your brother, you whip those sentiments against somebody who has the capacity to do the work because he is not related with you either by creed or by blood or by ethnic lines. We will choose not to vote for that candidate.
They also want the federal government to adopt the electronic transmission of election results in the 2023 general elections. They believe it will help to reduce electoral malpractices.
The Imo State Police Command has paraded suspected members of the Eastern Security Network, ESN, and kidnappers who have been allegedly terrorizing the Southeast region for some time now. Briefing newsmen at the police command headquarters in Owerri, the Commissioner of Police, Rabiu Hussein, said the suspects were arrested through credible technical intelligence of the anti-kidnapping unit of the command. Some of the suspects confessed their roles in the activities of the group.
Arrest of a notorious kidnapper, kidnapping syndicate and armed robbers, recovery of their arms and ammunition, and the recovery of 7 vehicles robbed from various victims. The anti-kidnapping unit of the command mobilized and rescued the victims in the hideout of the kidnappers. They were rescued unhurt. In the process, one Osike Chukwuka, aged 38 years, of Ubahawa Utulu in Oru West local government, was subsequently arrested.
Then discover compassion and double banner from my hand, and I got it from a security man, IK, from Anambra, Agnei. So when we are trying to join them, when we came here, so we see that they are not too powerful. So an IK told me that we have to form our own group with that compassion with the double banner. So okay, no problem. I have never shoot anybody. I have never attacked any police, even to attack any army or soldier. So we are trying to form our own with compassion and double banner.
They use it and be fighting police. Fighting police paper and army. They use it. They use it. All those want to be bombing the cars. That's what they use it. And I know the way that is.
From the southeast and now to some COVID-19 updates. The NCDC says the country's COVID-19 cases rose to 203,081 on Wednesday, recording additional 377 new infections. The NCDC, via its official website, disclosed this on Thursday morning. The additional 377 COVID-19 infections on Wednesday indicated a decrease from the 513 cases reported on Tuesday. NCDC added that the 377 cases bring the total number of infections in the country to 203,081. The agency noted that 15 states and the FCT reported the cases of COVID-19 on Wednesday. The NCDC stated that Lagos reported the highest number of infections on Wednesday, with 70 new cases, lower than the 132 cases it recorded the previous day. And in an effort to enhance food security and strengthen resilience among conflict-affected households in Borno, the European Union, FAO, UN Women and the World Food Programme, WFP, have been implementing a project for building of peace and sustainable development to smallholder farmers since 2018. The restoration and promotion of some sustainable agriculture-based livelihoods for food security, employment and nutrition improvement in Borno State was introduced in 2018 to support smallholder farmers for lasting peace and sustainable development in 13 local government areas.
More and more local people are going back to their villages. Therefore, the need for these people to be supported as much as possible, that they are able to strengthen their resilience, that we are able to strengthen the nutrition aspects of their lives,
And in our own small way as UN Women working with FAO and WFP, we have seen over 1,000 women smallholder farmers gaining knowledge in cooperative management, entrepreneurship, financial management. And so as we celebrate these achievements today, I'm confident that the beneficiaries will continue to benefit from these efforts beyond the project closure.
To ensure that as we go through the transition, the communities, the household supported were able to continue and sustain their consumption levels.
As food and agricultural project is coming to an end, let me use this medium to call upon other international development partners to take over where food and agricultural organization has ended. This is because our people are still in need of assistance and support, as most of them have returned to their communities.
And now to stories in other parts of Africa. Mali has marked its 61st anniversary of the country's independence from France. On Wednesday in Kati near Bamako, a military parade was held. The president of the transition, Colonel Assimi Goïta, was in attendance. The celebration, however, comes at a time of political uncertainty for the country. Goïta assured that Mali would honor all its international commitments, and this is amid controversy over the Malian military's alleged intention to hire paramilitaries from Russian private security firm Wagner. The Russian country is considered close to Russian President Vladimir Putin and has been accused of committing abuses. And Benin's President Patrice Talon met on Wednesday with his predecessor, Thomas Boni Yayi, for the first time in 5 years. This is indicating a possible thaw in relations between the government and the opposition in the country. Boni Yayi arrived smiling and looking relaxed as the two men greeted each other warmly ahead of the hour-long meeting at the presidential palace. Afterwards, Talon told reporters that he had taken pleasure in seeing Boni Yayi once more. Outside Africa now, a climate summit of world leaders in 40 days' time will be the turning point for humanity. Boris Johnson has said this in a speech at the United Nations. He warned that global temperature rises were already inevitable, but he called on his fellow leaders to commit to major changes to curb further warming. Countries must take responsibility for the destruction we are inflicting, not just upon our planet, but ourselves also. And this is, he said, ahead of the COP26 in Glasgow. It's time for humanity to grow up, the Prime Minister also said, and also mentioned it was time to listen to the warnings of scientists.
It's time for us to grow up and understand who we are and what we are doing. If we keep on the current track, then the temperatures will go up by 2.7 degrees or more by the end of the century. And never mind what that will do to the ice flows, dissolving like ice in your martini here in New York. We will see desertification, drought, crop failure, and mass movements of humanity on a scale not seen before. We need to pledge collectively to achieve carbon neutrality, net zero, by the middle of the century. And that will be an amazing moment if we can do it. And I'm absolutely convinced, I passionately believe, that we can do it by making commitments in 4 areas.
Now to business news. The Director of Information Technology of the CBN is Rukia Mohammed. She said on Wednesday that the Apex Bank has concluded plans to launch the Central Bank Digital Currency, CBDC, on October 1st. Mohammed disclosed this in a webinar themed Digital Currency and the Prospect of CBDC in Nigeria. It was organized by the Committee of E-Business in Industry Heads, Nigeria. Mohammed said the use of digital payments was rising while cash payment was declining, both in Nigeria and globally. She also said that 85% of central banks worldwide were considering digital currency, and so the CBN was also innovative to cope with global trends. And now to entertainment news. For the 3rd time, Rihanna has teamed with Amazon to debut her Savage X Fenty collection. This year, the unconventional fashion show will feature performances from rapper Nas, singers Ricky Martin, Normani, and others. Models Gigi Hadid, Alec Weck, and Adriana Lima appear in the special alongside actor Vanessa Hudgens and singer Erykah Badu. Rihanna said they were creating the show, and of course it's also a welcomed challenge. The collection features various pajamas, lingerie, loungewear, and also includes items for men. One of the elements the singer is most proud of is its inclusion, saying you cheat yourself when you exclude people.
You know, it's always a challenge, but I start thinking about these things from the time right now I'm thinking about the next one, because we killed it this year, and the challenge is always there to inspire and stimulate new ideas. That's how I love that. So I don't care for it to be easy. When it's challenging, that's when we have better results, because everybody pushes themselves, whether it's from dance, choreography, lighting, directors, models. Everyone brings their A game and they challenge themselves to make it better than the last time. Diversity has always been important to me. It's the only thing I really know, so it wasn't groundbreaking for me to even make things for the women that I want to see in it. I want everybody to be a part of my brand. I mean, you cheat yourself when you exclude anyone. And there are women all over the world and in all different sizes, religions, cultures, races. They want to feel sexy and they want to feel confident.
Still in entertainment, R. Kelly dominated not only women and girls, but also his employees over a quarter-century of sexual abuse. That's according to a prosecutor on Wednesday, as the R&B star's sex trafficking trial neared its conclusion.
Closing arguments kicked off on Wednesday in the sex trafficking trial against R&B singer R. Kelly, who did not testify in his own defense. The singer has been accused of grooming and sexually abusing women and underage girls, accusations Kelly has repeatedly denied. The 54-year-old announced his intention not to testify on Wednesday after 5 witnesses spoke in his defense over nearly 2 days, following 4.5 weeks of testimony from prosecution witnesses. The singer, whose full name is Robert Sylvester Kelly, had pleaded not guilty to 1 count of racketeering and 8 counts of illegally transporting people across state lines for prostitution. Throughout the trial, prosecutors have tried to portray him as a predator who exploited his fame to attract fans into his circle, where he would demand strict obedience or else punish them. The defense's 5th witness, music industry executive Julius Darrington, on Wednesday testified otherwise. Darrington said he sometimes spent 10 to 12-hour days with Kelly after meeting him in 2016 and never saw women being locked in rooms, heard screaming or crying, or saw Kelly strike anyone, which other witnesses have said took place. Prosecutor Elizabeth Geddes tried poking holes in Darrington's testimony, arguing he wasn't with Kelly 24/7. Jurors will begin deliberating on Thursday after Kelly's defense team offers its closing argument. Kelly also faces separate criminal charges in federal court in Chicago and state charges in Illinois and Minnesota.
And in sports news, UEFA has urged FIFA to stop pushing its plan for a 2-year World Cup and instead to engage in genuine consultation over reforms of the international match calendar. FIFA is conducting a feasibility study into holding the World Cup on a biennial basis. This is clearly a change from the current 4-year cycle, but has made no secret of its desire to switch to such a format. Arsene Wenger, the former Arsenal manager who is now FIFA's head of global football development, said this month he was 100% convinced of the switch. And that's the news brief. For more, please follow us at PlusTvAfrica on Facebook and Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa. Thanks for watching.
Most people know the common symptoms of the original COVID-19 variant, which are shortness of breath, cough,